Welcome to Not Thrown Away Their Shot, Student Voice and Agency in Class Design. So let's start with this. How do you determine the who? Who selects what is being learned? Who selects how it is being learned? The identification of the learning goals and the learning activities are key and the foundation of any instructional plan. Normally, teachers feel that it is their burden to determine these things, and that's part of lesson planning. But what if you could plan with students? Or, better yet, have students plan what they want to learn, how they want to learn it. Again, these are unique concepts, but it opens up our schools so that they are less overwhelmingly teacher-controlled, changing that into learning environments that enable greater student agency, ownership, and control of how, what, when, where, who with, and why they learn. Student agency allows for greater personalization, individualization, and differentiation of the learning process. These are really, really important elements of high-quality instruction. And by asking the simple question of who controls what is being learned and who controls how the learning is taking place, can revolutionize what happens inside your classroom, especially now that digital learning is with us and a brand new environment, and it's a new opportunity for new ideas. So, as you begin determining the activity and assessment within your classroom, start at the top, lead through facilitation. Taking a less heavy-handed approach allows students to explore and create in ways that you may have never imagined, but provide students with non-negotiable outcomes. Set deadlines, set timelines, determine learning standards, and the pace in which you need to learn them. Those are set for you. You can set those for your students. It's the in-between, the compromising that can take place, and that creates such great creativity. For students, work with them to brainstorm their own activities. How did they want to learn about the topics that you set in front of them? How did they want to achieve the learning goals that you've created together? And by keeping it all standards-based, you're ensuring high quality, engaging instructional content for your students. And that's the goal. And that's where we want them to be. So take a second. Who dominates the conversation? If you think back to your classroom, who was doing the talking? Was it the teacher? Was it the students? Was it the students reluctantly when called upon? When you think about the noises in your classroom, think about them less in terms of who is controlling the room and more about who is doing the learning. Talking usually invokes some different feelings and thoughts when it comes to classroom management. I know that when I was a teacher, I had an administrator come to me and say, the students are talking too much. They're off task. You need to make sure that they're on task during your lesson. But at the end of the day, I wanted my students to feel comfortable in my room, and I knew that they would get to talking about the content. If you've ever stepped foot in a staff meeting, you know that the conversations are not always about teaching. They might be about last night's game or what their kids did last weekend or the trip they're planning this summer. We know that these conversations are important for socialization reasons and for emotional well-being. So don't stomp out every conversation in your classroom that's not content related. That's okay. That's how things can grow and morph organically to fit the instruction that's happening. As long as you set up the parameters and the deadlines and the guidelines for your classroom, It allows students to then take control of the rest and to feel the agency, which in turn increases their engagement. So again, who is doing the talking? Who is determining who is talking at a given time in the classroom? Who's determining when someone can talk and who can talk? By opening up the conversation for your students, you're allowing them to experience the learning in the way that is most familiar and comfortable for them. But now it's time for work. During the lesson or unit, who is the primary driver of the work time? Students, teachers, or both? Who's making the decisions about the work time and ensuring that progress is being made? Progress is important, and it's okay that students get to control how they show progress. The non-negotiable would be that there is progress being made every single day, and that there's an end goal and an end time frame for the work to be accomplished. But students, especially in this unstructured environment, now have the chance to make the time what they want the time to be. So be flexible. And when we come back in person, maintain that flexibility. Allow students to work on what they need to work on, and allow them to determine for themselves how quickly they can accomplish a given assignment. Now, granted, we can't give them all year to complete one unit, but what we can do is develop strategies and check-in points collaboratively so that they are accomplishing it in a way that keeps them from asking for an extension or more time to work, because they will have established it themselves. Next, hit on personal passions. Is the student work reflective of their interests and of their passions? So often as a teacher, I would throw in all of this great content, all of these great ideas, and then I learned it wasn't really about them. It was about me. So be a listener. Hear what the students are interested in. Understand what they want to learn about and how they want to learn about it. And by igniting some of those personal passions, you can then build greater initiative. And that is the magic when it happens. Creating this initiative to want to learn. It's the goal. It's the dream that teachers want out of their students. We want them to want to learn. And if we can create the environment that builds that and fosters that ignition, that's a win. That's a huge win for teachers. And it helps students move forward faster on their track for achievement. So at the end of the day, we want students to fly higher. Let them choose their tools and technology. Usage and tool selection matters. If you're limiting them to a Prezi or a Google Doc when they're really excited about making a video or recording a podcast, that hinders their freedom and their agency and their motivation to do the work. Allow them to choose. Be open. And when in doubt, allow them to choose how they want to present their information. When you think about who is selecting which technologies are being used and who is the primary user of the technology, try to make sure that's in the student's hands as much as possible. That generates and creates a feeling of ownership that creates student connection with the content that you're laying out for them. And that's vital to building a positive classroom climate and culture of learning. Thanks.